Like the fashion world is not going to change if the people who claim to push for a better system don't have any spine to actually push for a better system, don't have any spine to be like, okay, we're kind of realizing that we've been advocating for that for many years and things are not changing and things are being completely, things are actually worsening and are going to keep worsening because now the very people who could actually really do something and who haven't done something have just literally opened the door for more crazy people to take over. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome if you're new. Welcome back if you're revenant. Please consider subscribing if you like everything and anything about fashion, critical thinking, and yapping. So I know it's been over a month since I last posted on my YouTube, but I'm a working woman and life and work got a hold of me. But we're not going to talk about that. That's not the subject of today's video. I am filming this video on November 6th, and I live in Central Europe. So we've had the result of the US election coming in during the night. And even though it's not completely set of who won, we have an idea of the projected winner. That said, the reason why I wanted to do this video is still related to fashion because upon opening my Instagram today, I stumbled upon a post about a podcast that I really enjoy. I've even mentioned that podcast once in a video. And one of the sentences in that post kind of in a way made me very irky because one of the sentences read, um, people will rather vote for a fascist than a woman. And it kind of made me, you know, it kind of reinforced the idea that I had of the sustainable fashion realm and the activism realm in the West, especially on climate change and, of course, the fashion world and all that, is never really about understanding properly what geopolitics are and understanding that actually fascism, may it be a man or a woman, is still fascism, um, is the problem. And the system is the problem. I know that a lot of people always kind of wonder why people in outside of America care so much about American politics. First of all, you need to know that America, the United States, is an imperialistic entity, meaning that they have a hold on foreign policies all over the world. So, what's happening in the United States is also our problem, especially that Europe is the United States little and has been since the end of World War II. Neoliberalism, you know, COVID fascism, and all that. So it is also our problem. And in general, you should actually really care about what's happening to people on the other side of the world because what's happening there will also happen to you. You know, the boomerang effect is a real thing. So I'm saying this, I'm prefacing this because I know that a lot of especially American people don't have any idea of how their policies and how their country influence and affect people in other parts of the world. And we are seeing it in Gaza, in Lebanon, in also Ukraine, and Russia, in China, like everywhere. Like everywhere, like the United States has over 800 military bases around the world. So, knowing that, and knowing that a lot of the big international organization also have their headquarters in like the United States, such as the UN, such as Human Rights Watch, it's important to know that the United States policies and politics do have an impact outside of the United States. And in general, like I said, you should actually care about what's happening, um, like next door to another human elsewhere in the world, especially when you know that like Western imperialism and US imperialism that is actually leading the Western imperialism is such a deadly and fascistic entity that it does affect people outside. And then, because of the boomerang effect, it comes back to you. And it's something that is actually so kind of crazy to me in a way, because it's always entities that dare to point out the capitalism in being the problem, that then don't understand that the very woman that this post was mentioning is upholding that capitalism that is actually creating the crisis that we are seeing in the fashion industry. The very same woman who actually promised to not ban fracking. Do you know how bad fracking is for the environment? The very same woman who had BlackRock writing her policies. Do you really think that BlackRock care about, women in the global south and the fashion industry as a whole when they benefit from that horrible industry and the process in that industry, when they are the ones actually setting the goals and setting the rules on how those industries need to work in order for that system to make money? And it kind of, in a way, awoke something, because I was like, this is just so insane for me that you would see the fascism in someone like Donald Trump, because he has like a very overt fascism, but you can't see the fascism in someone like Kamala Harris when she was, being endorsed and like running around with Liz and Dick Cheney, who are like actual war criminals, Reagan Republicans supporting her, who was parading around building the wall, who was saying the fracking would not be banned, who said who would have like Republicans in her government, in her administration, in the same time, in the same breath, saying that Republicans are evils. I just don't understand how people cannot see that, cannot see that Kamala Harris is not the one who's going to save the industry. She's not here for that. She's working with the people who are actually destroying it because they're making a profit out of it. And in the post, it also said that some people decided not to vote because both Republican and Democrats are the same, so they would not waste their vote. And kind of in a way to say that it was not the case. And I've seen that many, many times where people were trying to be like, no, the Republicans and the Democrats are not the same. And they are the same. The more you try to kind of scratch a Democrat and the Democratic Party, the more you kind of realize that they are actually working for the same entity. The Republicans and the Democrats are working for the ruling class. They are working for the billionaires. They are working for the corporations. They don't care about you. When literally Kamala Harris was saying that she'd rather go on with the genocide so the eggs could be, cheaper. Well, who's benefiting from the genocide? Corporation. Who's benefiting from also like price gouging? Corporation. Because it was a lot of empty promises for basically nothing. And it kind of reminded me of why I have actually distanced myself from Western sustainable activism as a whole, because it's still very liberal. You see the imminent danger in your rights as a woman, which also is very hypocritical when you know that the Democrats ran on campaign for years ago about, codifying Roe v. Wade, and they never did that, to the point that under the Biden Harris administration, Roe v. Wade was overturned. They had the power to literally make sure to codify it and to make sure that it would stay like a right, you know like Obama had the Obama literally had the majority to make it happen, but he did not. And then Biden and Harris had the majority to make it happen, but they did not. And the reason why they did not is because they don't fucking care. Because if they can have something that they can lure you in order to have your vote, they're going to do that. Because if they really cared about women's right, first of all, they would have been codifying Roe v. Wade first week in the office. And second of all, they wouldn't be like bombing the shit out of Palestinian and Lebanese women. So it's just that for me, it's you kind of seeing like what imperialistic feminism is, where it's I am in danger because now an overt fascist is taking power, but I would have continued doing my thing even though like a covert fascism would be in place. A covert fascism that would then leave place for an overt fascism. Because if you have not kind of realized it, but the Democrat Party have actually moved quite right in the past few years. And it kind of then made me realize that this is basically the landscape of sustainable fashion and sustainability activism in the West, where it dares to point the fingers at the problem, but when it comes to truly be like, okay, we're not going to settle for this, we need a complete, policy change and system change, suddenly they're not there anymore. Suddenly they would rather vote for a woman fascist than a man fascist. And I don't know about you, but for me, fascism is fascism. I don't care that it's a man and a woman. I don't care it's a white or person of color that is actually leading that fascism. Fascism is fascism, no matter who's actually the face of it. And I won't settle for any type of fascism. If you're giving me 99% mustache man or 100% mustache man, I'm not picking any of them. I'd rather pick death at this point. I'm very sorry, but how are we expecting to have a system change? How are we expecting to have dignity for those women in the global south literally dying for fashion when even us here in the imperial core are not even daring to truly, truly, truly advocate for change, to truly, truly challenge for change? Like, how are we supposed to have anything changing if we're letting our own government, and I'm talking the whole Western government, because like I explained it in the beginning, like even the Europe is also very much involved in American politics because we've been forced to be involved in it. But also here in Europe, fascism has been risen to the fucking maximum high. We are now realizing that liberal parties are very much, very, very much fascist as well. When you see like green parties here in Europe telling Jill Stein in the United States to endorse Kamala Harris, who is literally overseeing a genocide, this is telling you like what kind of parties we have here in Europe. Just look at Germany. Just look at even the left wing of Germany. It's a thought that I've been having for a very, 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 very long time about the whole, if we are not even daring to really, really tell our people in power that if they literally are fascist and if they literally don't care about humanitarian laws and rights and all people around the world, like, we're not going to vote for them. We're not going to give our vote, and we're going to create a coalition between us to kind of give the vote to the one actually deserving of that. How are we going to change anything? How is the system going to change? Is going to change? Like, if you content yourself in voting for a woman, even though the woman is a fascist, but just because she's a woman, which by the way is peak liberal feminism, like, which is just that we don't care about how evil the woman must be, as long as it's a woman, it's best. I'm very sorry, but we are lacking big time critical thinking to really understand that actually anything that is against the human being and against the thriving of the human being is not worth our vote. It's not worth even our attention. So when I see posts like that, it really baffles me and kind of makes me so sad that we are so far away to truly make a change. And I think even it's time for sustainable fashion realm here in the Western world to actually realize that maybe if they can content themselves into voting for a genocider because they only see that genocider as a woman, so they think it's best, maybe your activism is kind of more as a intellectual wanking to make yourself feel better, but you don't really care about how it is affecting the woman in the realm that you're advocating for. Because do you really think that Kamala Harris is going to be better for women in the global south as well? Or at least be honest with yourselves. Just be honest with yourselves that, yeah, you only care about you. You don't see the bigger picture. Your activism is just an activism. So, at least you're doing something, and you can tell yourself and you can tell your grandkids or whomever you want to tell to that you at least did something, which I'm not, spitting on the fact that you are doing something. I am just kind of raising the question as to, are you doing something because you really care? Because if so, maybe you should see the bigger picture. Maybe you should have a better understanding of geopolitics and kind of understanding of how things all work together before really giving yourself to a cause. Because if your cause is still harming the very people you're trying to advocate and is not doing any shit for the very cause that you're advocating for, what are you even doing but intellectual wanking? The more I think about that, the more I'm just like, okay, you're talking about capitalism, but why are you not really being more virulent when it comes to, voting? Which, by the way, also, when your only civil duty is to vote every few years and not care about, like the state of politics the rest of the time, you should also question what democracy is. And is it really democracy? Because I'm very sorry. What do you mean I have to vote once every few years and then that's about all I'm doing for democracy? And that's when then everyone is gonna, join their energy and start to shame people who actually don't want to vote for genocide. Because I also feel like that some people, especially Americans, because we, talking about American in this situation don't really have a proper understanding of how democracy works. Because what do you mean someone who is voting third party is a vote for Trump? What do you mean? Like, do you mean that basically those votes are taken and given to Trump? Or do you mean that you're just annoyed that some people dare to have a spine and not to vote for any genociders and prefer, like, giving more electoral votes for someone who is actually openly opposing the genocide and also like actively opposing the American imperialism? And then, since you don't have this plan, you better shame them. Because this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like most of the time. Like, when you also see like how the Democrats were running the SME campaign on Jill Stein, honey, they were not even attacking her policies because they knew that they could not attack her policies. So they were attacking her ad hominem attacks. I'm voting on someone based on their policies. What is the best policies for me and what is the best policies also for the people around me. And by around me, I mean that lives in my vicinity or that lives outside of my vicinity elsewhere in the world. Because Western policies do affect people around the world. Like, all policies in the world, wherever the country is also affecting the people outside of this country in some level. So you're telling me that based on that, uh, I decide to not vote for the one who is actually promoting fracking, who's actually promoting a border wall, who's actually siding with war criminals, who's having BlackRock, you know, writing their policies. And I'm not also siding with the like person, the one who's actually openly being overly racist, transphobic, and like misogynist, and all of the most fascistic and horrible things. And I'm settling to the one who's actually really thinking about what's beneficial for the whole people of the country, and also trying to think about how deadly and how detrimental our policies is abroad, and that we should change that. And having like a policy that is really for the people. And then, if I decide to vote for that third person who is more beneficial for me, the people around me, and the people outside of me, you telling me that me voting for that is my vote going for the overt fascist? Like, how does it work? Like, do you even hear yourselves? Do you even hear yourselves when you're saying like such things? Because, again, at this point, just admit that you're only thinking about yourselves, and all the activism that you're doing, you're not really thinking much of it. It's more so you can feel, better and all that, but you would still rather vote for the very person who would not change anything, and who's working for with the people who would literally make sure that she's not changing anything, so those people can actually make banks. It's literally so insane to me when I think about that, and I see the state of activism in the West, and kind of then realizing, and the more I start understanding how geopolitics works, the more I start understanding how neoliberalism works, how capitalism works, and how it is not only affecting the people abroad but here as well. Because at some point, because when you let those people you know off the hook, always they can commit the most horrendous crimes, they can meet the most horrendous people to their own people, but if the people still kind of let it pass, at some point when they kind of realize that, okay, genocide is not a red line when we're doing it like abroad, Let's just bring genocide inside our country. Let's just bring austerity, like a maximum austerity within the country. For me, when I see that people can't understand that every time you letting those people know, you letting the ruling class that they can do whatever the fuck they want to do, as long as it's not affecting you directly, um, or it's not affecting you like overtly, you have no problem with that. The more you kind of letting them know that they can be as fascistic as they want, then you get like the Democratic Party literally leaning further, further, further right. And I'm talking about the Democratic Party, but it's the same here in Europe. Like those liberal parties are, have just been moving right, righter and righter and righter over the years. It's literally for me like seeing this post kind of screamed like a very very big lack of an of understanding of geopolitics, and got me wondering about if for you you don't see the woman as fascistic as well, or you making like a difference between woman fascism and men fascism. I'm very 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 sorry, but I am going to question your activism. If your activism, and especially when you're in your activism you are actually calling out the capitalism, which is the core of the problem, but then you still have the goal to vote for the one who is still upholding the very capitalism that you're denouncing, I am going to question your activism. When you put on the forefront the detriment of the fashion world and the fashion realm, and how horrible it is for the woman in the global south, and how horrible it is for the planet, but you still are willing to vote for the very person who's still going to maintain that, I am going to question your activism. Because at this point, what are you even doing? If you're not opposing the very people who are still causing the problem that you're denouncing, what are you even doing? If you cannot even uphold or restrain your vote until the very people who have to listen to us, just a reminder that politicians have to listen to us. They are literally working for us. They are supposed to represent us. And if you are still willing to vote for the people who are refusing to do that, if you are willing to vote for the woman who would literally interrupt her own people that she's supposed to listen to by being like, I'm speaking. So editing Ruth here because I just wanted to give a little precision on the I'm speaking bit that I am referring to. So if you've been living under a rock, a few months ago during one of her rally, I don't remember where it was, Harris said to one of the people in the rally, one of the constituent, one of the citizen in the rally, excuse me, I'm speaking. Knowing that that person who actually voiced out frustration was calling out Harris and Biden-Harris administration for overseeing, abating, and supporting a genocide happening now in Palestine. And as all liberal feminists will do, they saw this as this beacon of girl boss, such power. The woman is literally taking her stance and she's not letting herself being dictated what to do or what to say or whatever. And the person who was interrupting her, and I need to precise this, was calling her out and the Biden-Harris administration for the current genocide they're supporting with that person tax dollars, when those tax dollars could actually be used for Americans and Americans' social infrastructure that Americans need very badly right now. And being raised as this kind of feminist girl boss woman for literally showing that you don't fucking care about your constituent and their concerns, and them asking you to stop killing people in the Middle East with their own money is not a feminist stance. This is quite the opposite. Not listening to your constituent. I don't care. Even if you're a woman, you are in this rally to prove to the people there that you deserve their vote, because you're going to be on their side. You're going to listen to them. When you don't do that, I am very, very sorry, but when you don't do that, you don't get to be called a feminist or a progressive. And not see a problem. Also in that, I'm actually questioning your activism. If you don't dare to really push, to really materialize your activism, I'm questioning it. I'm going to question everything. Because what do you mean you would be fine having a woman who is currently overseeing the highest level of fascism, which is genocide, and still not see a problem, and then be like, "Oh, people would rather vote for a fascist man than a fascist woman." Like, I'm very sorry, but there's actually massive problem in not seeing the bigger picture. There's actually massive problem in being the kind of person where you are pretending, because at this point, like, it feels like more pretending that you care about global issues and about how it's affecting the people on a massive scale, but then are still willing to vote for the people who are still going to perpetuate that suffering. Just because you might not be suffering like directly, or you might be suffering this overtly, that you'd rather see the Democrats, strip away your rights one by one because you've actually given them the, green light that they can do that, as long as they kind of, luring you in with this idea that, oh, if you vote for us, we're going to codify Roe v. Wade, even though we could have done that years ago, but we're not going to do that, because what can we actually lure you in with if we don't, withhold this right, And if you're not realizing that, I'm very sorry, but not only I feel really bad for you, but secondly, I'm kind of really wondering if you really do have an understanding of politics as a whole. Like, especially when you cannot materialize the very activism that you're pushing, and you're doing this rightly so, but then suddenly it's, oh wait, I'm still gonna vote for the people that are still perpetuating what I am denouncing. How is the system going to change when the people even leading the fight are not willing to push for the change? Because they are more thinking about their comfort, that they are thinking about actually a long standing and long time comfort that could benefit everyone and that could actually resolve people's suffering. All that to say that basically the whole activism scene in the fashion world, and I'm talking about the fashion world because my channel talks about fashion in a very critical way, is not going to change, because if the very people who are actually leading that are still okay to maintain that fascism, maintain those policies just because it's not affecting them, just because they prefer to be selfish. And then suddenly, like when it comes to really organizing and really materializing what they are saying, they don't have any spine anymore. Change is not going to happen. The reason why I always talk about, the need of a system change is because we really need that. And it's because I'm thinking about, a long standing and a more kind of comfortable future and dignity for all. But we need to have a spine. We need to dare to show the people that we are voting for and that we are putting in office. Just so you remember, those people are being put in office because we are putting them in office. So they are working for us. That if they're doing shit, if they decide to be fascistic, if they decide to literally lead genocide, that we are not going to support them. And if you're not even able to do that, I'm very sorry. Your activism was not even anything at this point. If it was just that, your activism was just to make yourself feel good. And that was about it. But you never truly cared. If you truly, truly cared, you would really pay attention to what your current government is doing politically, how it has affected not only the people domestically, but also internationally. And you would not be like, "Oh, this is so sad that the people are still not willing to vote for a woman that, even though she is fascistic, she's still a woman." I'm all about pushing women on the forefront as a woman myself. But I think we need to kind of get away from that very liberal feminism, where that liberal feminism is about women just like reaching the same level as men, but never really changing the status quo. It's just allowing women to be as evil as men, when the goal is to make sure that no one is evil. If your goal is just to have like another group of people, another minority, just be doing the same shitty behaviors that we've been denouncing for decades, what's even the fucking point? What is the damn fucking point? I need someone to explain to me. How are we really going to change anything when basically activists here in the West are just selfish, intellectually wankers, and pretend to actually care about the global South and international law and like the bettering of the society? But when it comes to actually doing it, suddenly they rather just keep the thing going, even though the party that they would push for is like furthering to the right and have been furthering to the right over the years. Even when the very party that is now literally leading the highest level of fascism, which is genocide, once again, has the power to stop it, but is not doing so. And is not listening to people doing so. Even though that the very party that supposedly is like more democratic, and I'm talking about like the entire Western world, have been like, for example, UK Labour and all that, have been literally crushing anti-genocide protesters because they would rather make money and have people in the global South being killed so they can make profit out of it, than actually really, really change policies and really try to make a whole situation better. I don't know, man. Maybe understand that fascism, even if it's a woman, is still fascism. Just because it's a woman face is not going to change anything. See past liberal feminism. If you claim to really care about the planet, to really care about the people around the world, prove it. This is so sad. This is so effing sad to then kind of realize that so many actually activists, like so-called activists in the West who have like a platform, actually, if you scratch a little bit, they're actually just liberals who pretend to care. But the moment that they see that maybe now their comfort is in danger, when they literally grifted the whole time about, the comfort of others and, making sure that others are also comfortable, suddenly it's a problem. Suddenly we should have kept the fascist in place, because she would have literally stripped our rights away, slowly, gently, without us realizing. Neither Trump or Kamala should have been, running for president, to be honest. Neither of them should have been like the main contestant for presidency. Neither of them. But the fact that some people who kind of praise to be, for human rights, who praise to be, caring for the planet, caring for the people in the global south, and caring for their well-being, and caring for, making sure that we live in a more just system, just happen to not even holding that materially, not really caring. And it is so disappointing. And I think in general, like I mentioned in my video, like the whole activism in the West needs to be rethought. It needs to be rethought. It needs to be reshaped, because a lot of it is just intellectual wanking, where people just do that to make themselves feel good. But when it comes to materially do something, suddenly, just leave the fascism in power, even if it's soft. Contenting yourself with soft fascism when you could content yourself with no fascism at all is literally so scary to me. So freaking scary. It really pains me to see like those elections, and the result of those elections. But it pains me even more that, we're still so far from really organizing and having people having a spine, and truly organizing and truly realizing that maybe it's time that we take the matter in our hands, because the ruling class is not going to hand us our freedom, is not going to hand us our dignity. And then we just like, petty fighting among ourselves, so the ruling class can keep fucking us over. I don't know. It's something that really, really pains me when I see that people don't really know the true meaning of solidarity, and what like we need. Like people love to use the term solidarity and community without really, basking in it, without really putting it into existence, without really doing anything of it. Because when it comes to really showing solidarity and community and be like, we're not going to vote for any of the genociders, suddenly the very people who claim that they were about solidarity and community are not there anymore. you know um I don't know, and I just don't know, like it's going to be really hard to organize under Trump, obviously, but it was already hard to organize under Biden and Harris. Like, look at how many suppression there was of anti-genocide protesters. Like, look at that. Look at the repression. Even here in Europe, in more like so-called social democratic countries, when you sing, I literally, like in the UK, where journalists and in activists are being raided by the police. In Germany, basically green parties are leaving the government because the Germany is not supporting the genocide of Israel enough. Like, just look at that, and just look at the brutality. Like, I just don't know. Like, when you say, oh, it's gonna be harder to organize under Trump. Were you already organizing under Biden? Were you organizing under Biden? Were you? Because the ones that were literally like viciously beaten up for doing so. I just wish people were more honest about their position, and more honest about the, okay, yes, no, I'm only thinking about my own ass, and my own ass does not want overt fascism to be there. I'd rather have like soft fascism, like covert fascism, to be in place, so I can still keep doing my activism and give myself a sense of fulfillment, rather than truly organizing and finding a system that is, and like, different and beneficial to everyone. I'm just so disappointed at people not really admitting that, they'd rather not truly materialize their struggles and their advocacy, and would just content themselves with the crumbs that they're given, and they're not ready for a real systems change, and that they're scared of a system change. I would rather have people be honest like that than pretending that the root of the cause still should still remain, because it's more comfortable for them and their well-being, or whatever thing it is comfortable for them for. Anyways, so that is truly, truly the end. Um, Again, let me know in the comments what you thought of that, and what you think, what were you kind of thinking this entire time, coming up to those elections, and also about the whole activism, and especially sustainable and fashion activism that we've been witnessing in the West. Are you part of an activist group? And is this something that maybe you've been noticing as well? That material analysis is not really existing. It's a lot of words, but not really actions. When it is, as simple as not giving a vote to a genocider. And please like this video if you liked it. It helps me a lot. You can share around, maybe other people have the same feeling, or maybe people need to hear like how contradictory it is to vote for a genocider but pretend that you actually care about global issues and climate change, when the genocider, that you actually want people to vote for, is working with corporations such as BlackRock, who literally does not give a damn about climate change. If anything, they would do everything so they can milk every resources existing on this earth to make banks, and also to support like a genocider who is willfully and willingly overseeing a genocide and just feeding the military industrial complex for her corporation friends, basically. And then it's maybe time that people be honest with themselves and admit that either they're doing that because they're grifting, or because they want to gain popularity and money, but they don't really care much about truly system change and the well-being of all people, may it be domestically or internationally. And yeah, in the meantime, I'll see you in my next video. It should not be like a month and a half before you see me again. Should not. I'm not promising anything. But that was my little comeback to let you know that I'm still here, and to kind of express myself and give this little rant that was necessary for me. Anyways, in the meantime, I'll see you in my next video. Love always.